Hey there. Can AI agents really change the way that we do business? Absolutely. But it's only if you know how to use them. So, today in our episode, we're going to talk about AI agents and Copilot Studio. We're going to talk about why Power Platform skills are so important to harness the full potential. And as always, we got to talk about the future of AI. Let's check it out. Hey, everybody, I'm Kristen Fehrenbach, the Senior Director of Microsoft Go-to-Market here at Pax8. Thanks so much for joining Technically Unraveled, where we cover all things modern work, AI, Azure, business applications, cybersecurity, the full stack. Now, Pax8 Live, it's not just Technically Unraveled. We've got our friends over at The Game, gonna talk all things cybersecurity. We also have Academy Live. There's so much content coming your way. So I want to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe because I don't want you to miss out on any of the content from deep dive cybersecurity. You got your Microsoft content, but what is the enablement content that you can also get? Our Academy team will make sure that that is covered. Now, today, I've got a first time guest on our show. I am super excited to have Simon join us today. All right. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great, Kristen. How are you?
I am doing well. So, since it's your first time on the show, could you just introduce yourself? Tell us who you are. What do you do here? You are at Pax8. And I love to do a fun fact just to kick off the show.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name's Simon Green. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Pax8. That means that I'm responsible for all the technology that anyone with a pax8.com email address is using. That's as opposed to my colleague Libby, who's responsible for what all of everyone else is using, our public products that we produce. So that's everything, all of our technology stacks, Salesforce, ServiceNow, the Microsoft stack, everything.
I love it.
And
All right. Fun fact.
Fun fact about me, I have never knowingly had a job interview. Right out of college, I went to go have a job interview, but I ended up being compelled to go and fix a problem that I could hear a couple of people talking about just outside the reception area of this place I was sat in my fursuit. I could hear them talking about a problem with an email server, and I knew what the fix was, and I just went around there and said, "Excuse me, do you mind if I just explain here what the problem is and what's going on?" And what happened was this other company were like, "Actually, we're looking for someone to come and work in IT and help us," and so that was it. I just slipped into that and never went to work with the company I was there to interview with. And since then, I've been broadly self-employed, and then I came into Pax8.
Wow. Okay. That is such a fun one. I like that you're like, hey, actually, I could help you. I won't touch your computer, but like, let me tell you what I know what's happening here.
Yeah, I am compelled. I can't hear about a problem and not just lean in and try and fix it.
I love it. Well, today I asked you to come on the show because we spent a little bit of time together. And yes, you are in charge of our full stack, everything that we use inside of Pax8. All of our Pax8 employees, we've got M365 Copilot licenses. We are going down this AI journey. But I wanted you to join us today to talk specifically about AI agents because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of different ways that people can actually build them. So, can we just kind of start ground floor and talk about how to build AI agents in general?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to approach this problem. I think an important place to start is going to be, what is an AI agent? What does that mean? What is a chatbot? What is Copilot Chat or Chat GPT versus what are these AI agents that people talk about? Because they're definitely not the same thing. Um, I like to use the definition that an agent is a AI tool that is principally existing to interact with other tools and other agents, and it's a behind the scenes situation. Whereas AI chat or a chat interface like ChatGPT or Copilot Chat is there for the purpose of the human interacting with it. So Copilot Chat is the UI to the Copilot agents behind the scenes. And a good analogy to this would be if if you think about a ship. A ship's going to have a captain. The captain needs to be issuing instructions, but they're not going to go all the way down to the engine room and issue the instruction for the ship to go faster. They're going to say to the helm, helm, full ahead. They're going to acknowledge that command, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to communicate with the engine room and onwards, who are going to pull the levers, whatever they need to do to get the boat to go faster. It's not going to be the captain doing that, but the captain doesn't need to know. A chain of individuals along the way are going to take care of that problem, but all they hear is that initial instruction. And so you can think of giving that as initial instruction as the chat, and then the agent says all of the individuals, all of the experts in the chain along the way. And the further down that chain you go, the increasing specificity of the expertise.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm following. Here we go. So there's different types of agents, right? So if I'm in Teams, right, and I go in there and I'm like, hey, I'm going to spin up an agent, it's going to do this and that, serves a little bit more of like that chatbot functionality versus the
Hmm.
agent that you're kind of speaking of is that one that could potentially even work autonomously. Is that kind of where I'm at?
Potentially, yeah. So um, when people get started building chatbots and agents in tools like Copilot Studio, where they tend to go is question and answer. They tend to go with, I have this corpus of knowledge that I need to serve up somehow, and they want to use a chat interface to do that. So they will, let's say, for example, it's somebody in an HR function and they've got all of their policies. They might want to expose those policies through a chatbot. That's a really common thing that people produce. It's really just putting a user interface in the form of a chat based experience in front of all of that knowledge. When you get into agents taking actions, an equivalent in the HR world might be, I need to book off some PTO, or I want to get a copy of my most recent pay stub. And for that sort of thing, you need that agent to go and take an action, to do some work, to connect out to an outside system. And this is where they start to replace the traditional user interfaces that you might use. So let's say you're a company that's using Bamboo HR or Workday, you would go to those tools to go and get that information. In an agentic world with chatbots as the interfaces, you're just going to ask the question and it's going to perform those actions for you through the APIs of those tools to go and get the information that you need.
You used the magical term agentic. And it's funny, like this continues to come up. So
Uh-huh.
I just want to make sure we're kind of clear when we look at this one. What does agentic AI actually mean?
Okay. So this is a little bit like cloud. So I don't think you'll get one answer to this, but I like to explain it as agentic is where you have these AI agents interacting with each other in a way that doesn't necessarily expose itself to you. Sometimes you might not even be the trigger for it to start taking action in the first place. And the key thing is that it's using its ability to understand human language to make decisions around what it's going to do next. It can be presented with a whole plethora of possible actions and buttons it can push, levers it can pull, but you don't have to tell it what to go and push. You just tell it what your intent is, and it figures out what actions from its pile of tools it's going to go and use. It would be like saying to a general contractor, "Build me a house." You don't need to specify exactly how they go about doing that. In the agentic world, you will have an agent that is a specialist in plumbing, an agent that's a specialist in carpentry, an agent that's a bricklayer, and they will just go and do the things that they're experts at. But that general contractor agent that you have spoken to is the one coordinating all of that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now we've got orchestrated AI agents, but then there's also deterministic ones. So
Mhm.
we've got different kinds of agents now. So can you kind of also walk me through that? And I know we're diving in deep here and we're going to come back out, but orchestrated agents, deterministic ones, how do those really differ?
Yeah, that is a really important distinction, actually. So, um, a deterministic means if you tell it to do this thing, it will always have the same outcome. A generative agent, an orchestrator, is going to have a bit of creativity to it. If you tell it to do the thing, it may not do exactly the same thing every time. It might take a different path to get that information. For example, a generative AI agent is going to be great for surfacing knowledge from across your business. If you want to expose a bunch of documents to it, it will be able to use a little bit of randomness to figure out how it follows that path and start weaving through documents and finding information before giving you something back that is as it has put together by reading the content. A deterministic agent is for actions where you really care that it takes those exact steps every single time. You do not want a non deterministic agent to go and book you a flight, right? You don't want any creativity in that. If you say, I would like to book a flight tomorrow morning to Lisbon, you don't want to end up with a ticket tomorrow afternoon to Berlin. That's not where you want to be. So, well, maybe you do if you like a little bit of a randomness in your life. And so there is a blend of approaches needed to create a really good agentic system. And I think this is something that the world is starting to realize with this AI paradigm now, where it's not as simple as just throw all the actions, throw all the knowledge at the agent, let it get creative and figure it out. Actually, you need to get really intentional about the deterministic side. And the deterministic approach is it's more about automation and understanding how your processes work and how you want your processes to work than it is about AI. The AI is an interface that provides a delightful experience to that automation, but the automation is what makes that AI deterministic.
Got it. So that all makes sense. And I feel like there could be such a benefit, right, to the orchestrated methods. But I feel like that's also going to bring in its own set of challenges at the same time. So what is your view when you look at it is like, hey, it's not always going to go down the same path. Like, where do you find those benefits versus challenges in that
Mm.
method?
So, a good example would be my team went after this problem, and we learned a lot doing it, trying to create a AI entry point to the IT function in Pax8. We call it technology services. It's a service organization inside Pax8 that provides technology to the company. So we wanted to provide the AI interface to tech services, and that could be there is something wrong with my headset. I need access to this piece of software. I need to get my laptop repaired, all sorts of things. Now, some of these things are quite creative problems to solve. If you go to a human and say, I have a problem with Microsoft Teams, it's not picking up my headset, that could be for any number of reasons. And you have to go down a diagnostic path. You have to start getting really creative with how you do problem solving there. It's a problem solving type of task to go after. If somebody says, I need to order a new mouse to replace my mouse. Well, there's not a lot of room for negotiation there. You want to connect to your hardware vendor's API, trigger the shipment, and dispatch the mouse to the person. And you want to dispatch it to that person's address, not some random address. So there's no room for negotiation in that conversation. It's do the thing and do the thing the way that I intend it to be done. And so those are actually harder paths of interaction to create in these agents because you have to be really conscious and intentional about creating these flows, these um, automations for it to be able to draw down on them.
Interesting. Okay. So there's your curated and then your broad knowledge, right? And so we've got both aspects of that of saying, do I want to grant my agent just all of the information, or am I wanting to maybe point them specifically to, say, a SharePoint, things like that? I mean, what are the different paths that we really look towards when we're doing maybe one versus the other, if it's curated or just broad knowledge? Is there like a
Mm.
trigger in your mind, Simon, that you're like, hey, at this point, it makes sense to go this way?
I think there is a really easy construct you can hold in your mind to answer this question sort of intuitively while you're building. If this was a human that you were talking to, does that human need to understand every single facet of your business in order to achieve the task that you're giving it? If it does, then it needs access to all of the knowledge. The chances that that is true, though, are vanishingly small. Really, there's not many tasks you're going to go after that need access to all of the information across the entire business. It might be you want to research something. You might want to say something like, I'm looking for examples for case studies of where we have done a particular type of project in the legal sector. Find me statements of work that we have done. And that's a really broad knowledge thing to do, right? But most of the time, you know what you're after. And the best service you're going to have in the company, if that was a human, is going to be from an expert. You're not going to go to a finance person and say, can you help me book some time off? You're not going to go to a salesperson and say, could you help me fix my laptop? It's different problems, right? Different specialists. And so 90% of the time, what you actually want to do is create a specialist agent. You want to create something that's focused on the task. To do that, you want to give it exactly the knowledge that it needs to be successful. If you give it more knowledge that it needs, chances are it's going to start to draw down on that knowledge in an unexpected way. You might trigger a particular search result. You might get something that it thinks is right, that it then injects into the conversation, and that's going to poison the conversation from that point onwards, and it's going to start to go weird and wrong because it's not an expert. It's a generalist and it's trying its best to muddle its way through it, but it doesn't have a means of discerning what is useful and what is not. So it's on the builder of the agent to be ultra specific about exactly what you give it to be successful at the job that it's at. And that's really, when you're thinking about agentic, another way of thinking about it is a field of experts rather than one broad knowledge expert. The orchestrator in the center can be aware of all these experts, but you tell that orchestrator never answer the thing yourself, select the expert and then connect the person to the expert and let them handle it. And they in turn will then go and use additional expertise elsewhere. You might go as far as to say, an IT service agent might have a ticket opening agent that it calls out to that is really good at opening tickets. You can go as specific as you want. Imagine being able to have an unlimited pool of headcount and employees to build your company from. How specific would you go on the job descriptions? You'd be down to like one line per person, right? If there was no cost to every single employee, and you'd end up with this machine uh, of ultra experts in their field. That's the model, that's the dream, the nirvana with the agentic world.
Okay, so that makes a ton of sense, right? It's like, hey, you know what? You're really good at these specific things. You go, you're the ticket submitter. Here we are. But
Mhm.
I love that your team in particular, there's always some cool innovation happening, right? And so I know from poking around, maybe in Copilot, who knows, that you guys did a hackathon recently, which is super cool, specifically in Copilot Studio. But can you just give us a little bit about maybe what the experience was, some cool learnings, just an overview?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks we spent essentially a deep dive around Microsoft Copilot. What can we do with it? How can we take a concept and turn it into production? We did end up with a useful production agent at the end that we called it Tim after one of the guys in the team, but I think it stands for Technology Intake Machine. But really, we just wanted a reason to call it Tim. And the um, the path we took was all in Copilot Studio, and it was a bit of a roller coaster, really. We started out very excited and started building our parts of the machine, our tools. But what we hit up against was Copilot as a tool and Copilot Studio as a tool was launched pretty early in the cycle of AI tooling. And it's been a fascinating cycle to watch, but it was launched pretty early. And in order to launch it successfully, Microsoft leveraged a lot of their existing estate of tooling. And so that means that it's extremely adjacent to Power Platform, and you have to have a lot of knowledge around Power Automate, Power Flows, and the Power Platform environments in order to successfully create these. That wasn't necessarily obvious when we first got started digging into it, and it meant that we had to have a bit of a step back, a reset, reassess our skills, sort of context switch into okay, now we're going to do some Power Platform work here and start thinking about the automations. Um, Reset, and then start again. And additionally, the pace that the technology is changing meant that during that hackathon, Microsoft made like 2 releases while we were doing it and moved the ground under our feet. So we got to points where like the documentation wasn't aligned with reality, and so we were finding things that didn't exist in the docs. They even changed like some of the code that's used and stuff. The definitions changed in between one day and the next day. So it was tough, but we got there. it's interesting. The releases have continued to happen. I think if we went after everything that we did again now, it would actually be a lot easier, a lot more straightforward, because they have released new tooling since then that makes it easier. But the pace that the AI tooling is moving is wild.
I 100% agree. It's crazy. Like, I'll go in and I'm like, okay, well, this is vastly different than it was last week, right? And I agree. Everything came out so quickly. Look, with any new release, I think if we're honest in this room here with everybody else that's here with us, Simon, like there's always bumps in new products, and they're going to continue to evolve. They're going to continue to get better. But if you look long term at this, if you had this magical wand and you were kind of like, hey, I think that it's going this way, what do you think?
Well, what I will say is that all of the major software houses have bet the house on this, and with good reason. They know what they're about. They know what they're talking about here. This is the future. There is a world where SaaS applications, user interfaces start to become less important to the day-to-day interactions of people using those tools, especially the supporting cast of tools, should we say, where you go to not perform your main job, but you go there as a head turn, as a swivel chair when you have to go and do an extra thing. That's critical. Microsoft are very rapidly evolving their tool set around this. There seem to be new announcements every day for interconnectivity between tools. I talked about agentic really in the frame of one environment, but if you imagine that those ultra specific experts that you have can also reach out to any other ultra specific expert in the world, that's where we're going with this. And you hear about technologies like MCP and A2A. These are protocols that allow agents to understand and talk with each other without having to have that deliberately defined in a deterministic way in advance. So, right now, we're not there, but building the skills to be able to understand how to build the automations around this and how these technologies interconnect with each other and where it's going is really important to understand, because you can be thinking about how do the processes in your business work? What workflows can you be producing now? What automations can you be producing now? Um, yeah, if you follow the curve of the AI technology development over the last 2 years, really from the announcement of Microsoft Copilot onwards, they sort of lit the fire, they lit the fuse, and you follow it onwards through Salesforce and Agentforce, through ServiceNow last week and their Now Assist. Each time there is an announcement from one of these companies, they're standing on the shoulders of those who came before them and doubling it again, and it just keeps on going and going and going and going and going. Give it 3 years, and I think we'll be more concerned about how does the tool you want to buy interact with your AI tooling more than what's the user experience like, what's the UI like. It'll be a very different bias, I believe.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Okay. You've talked we've talked about Power Platform here, and it's funny because it's not technically built on Power Platform, but there is a lot of interconnectedness that's happening here. So, if you're looking at the future view and you're saying, hey, you know what, MSPs should really probably have an understanding of Power Platform, it could probably make their lives a lot easier as they're going and building these. Would you agree?
Yeah, if we're speaking to, I guess the viewers of this podcast are predominantly going to be in the MSP world, right? So speaking specifically to them, if you're not already thinking about how do you take your customers' workflows and reproduce them in an automated way and start to get involved in them with automated actions, how do you move the data around, things like that, but with the Power Platform tooling, that's what I would be doing right now. If you go to your customers and say, hey, let's build an AI agent to transform your world and then redo everything, you will probably trip over yourself at the start and fail. But start with the automation, start with workflows, and using all of the power in that tooling that is available to most people who are using the Microsoft suites. It's incredibly powerful, and it's exactly what Copilot Studio makes use of when you want to do these actions. They do have another more recently sort of announced branch, I guess, of that tooling, which is called Flows, Copilot Flows, which is a AI oriented version of Power Flows and Power Automate, but it's the same it's the same tools, it's the same sort of thing, it's the same feel. So if you're learning one, it's extremely applicable to the other. So start looking at your customers and what are the things they do that as a technologist you believe are stupid and could be fixed by better technology? And that mentality, that tell me what's stupid, I think that's one of the best things a technologist can ever be doing to help their customers. One of my favorite things when I used to be in the MSP world, and in fact I even do it today, I'll sit down with our sales team and say this is, hey, what's annoying you this week? What's just grinding your gears? Because that's how you find out where the opportunity is to help them and be that force multiplier for them. And that's what a technologist should be. You should be helping the people that you are serving to do better, work. So find those opportunities, uncover those, and help them using tools like Power Automate. Because then you're setting yourself up extremely well to very easily move into, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a chat interface to that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start integrating your departments together in an agentic and a chat way and bleeding that in.
Okay, so MSPs, go ahead and get started thinking about the automated way that we can, hey, what grinds your gears? What's that annoying thing? Like, for instance, Simon, if you email me every day and I have to save whatever attachment into a folder, that could probably be automated, right? So, thinking in that manner, I think, is a really, really good tip. But now we're like, okay, so now we've got agents on agents on agents. Now we're having this whole conversation about, okay, well, this agent creates a ticket, this does this. And before you know it, it feels like I've got, I don't know, 75 employees that I'm trying to coordinate. So,
Mm.
what is the coordinator of all of these new employee agents at this point?
That's a really good question. I'm going to get slightly controversial here on a show that's primarily oriented around Microsoft and say Microsoft does not currently have a solution to that in their suite of tooling. They rely on you in the same way that you would manage your Power environment to also manage the AI agents that you're creating in that environment. What I will say, though, is this is a rapidly emerging area of capabilities right now. I am seeing tools pop up all the time that look at the way that your AI usage patterns exist, the way that your tools connect together, the way that you're making use of AI tools, and surface insights to you to help you understand them and sort of corral them. Just last week, there was an on-stage announcement. Microsoft Satya and Bill McDermott from ServiceNow were announcing that their new Now Assist platform, one of the features is understanding all of your Copilot interactions and how they interconnect with all the tools. I would call this the sort of almost bleeding edge end of where the AI tool sets and the AI ecosystem is right now, but it's one to keep an eye on, but no good answer right now. It's a good one to be thinking about, though. If you were a manager and you had to manage 80 direct reports, you would be having a sad time. You don't want to have to worry about that in the AI world as well.
Exactly. So, okay. And I mean, it's continuing to evolve, right? I mean, Microsoft Build is next week. I know that they are already putting out some content. If you're not registered, everybody out there, you can still register online. So, I do highly recommend that because there is going to be a lot of stuff that comes out around agents. But, Simon, you're actually in there, hands on keyboard, building some of these right now. I mean, have you built any personally that, has really fixed one of those issues that were really grinding your gears in particular? Maybe somebody on your team, like, is there any of them that you've actually developed that you're like, hey, you know what? This has saved me a bunch of time.
So certainly in my personal life, I mean, I think I use AI. I'm going to say it's probably, if I check my iPhone stats, it's going to be the number one app on my phone. Um, I consider it an enormous personal augmenter when it comes to researching a topic. If I want to learn more about something, it's a phenomenal tool. I like nothing I've ever come across before. When it comes to taking actions in tools, we have started using AI tooling around things like discovery of trends in data and surfacing themes. That's been quite good. We've used AI tooling for analyzing themes in stacks of ticket data, for example, to understand where there might be problems. Um, there's plenty of ideas as well. Like just this week, we were looking at an issue where someone in my team surfaced, "Hey, it looks like this particular group of Dell latitudes are all starting to get overheating issues. We might have a pattern emerging here." Great use of AI, right? You can go skimming for those sorts of tickets, those issues, and see what you can extrapolate from them, and if there's any common patterns. But this is all pretty cutting edge stuff. If you're a business and you're actively exploring this now, it's an interesting time because it's not very easy and not very common in the technology cycles to be able to say you are exploring something that is ultra niche and it gets to put us on the bleeding edge, while at the same time being in like the 1% that's taking advantage of it, and it's pretty safe to play with and explore. So it's like weirdly accessible and incredibly game changing, and you really want to be playing with it and learning about it and just thinking about how you can apply it to yourself.
Don't get left behind. I love it. I mean, this show has flown by today, but before we close out, Simon, is there any tidbit of advice that you would leave our partners with today?
Well, I mean, really, it's what I just said. You got to play with it. If you don't have Copilot already in your own tenant, go get yourself at least one license and start playing with the thing and learning what the capabilities are. And if you're not using Power Automate, start finding something in your own business. Drink your own champagne, I guess is the phrase. It's you want to learn what these tools can do and then just start playing, start offering them. It's a whole new paradigm. It's a new way of thinking. It's a very, very different type of uh, managed service to provide to your customers. It's very creative.
Amazing. Simon, it's been lovely having you. I just want to say thank you so much for your time today.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. We will see you soon, Simon. All right. I want to make sure we throw it out to our Copilot tip of the week.
Want to make AI work for you, like really work for you? Meet your behind-the-scenes genius, Copilot agents. Hey, I'm Willis. This week's Copilot tip of the week is all about agents, what they are and what they can do. What's an agent? When most people think about AI agents, their first question is generally, how is this different from the AIs I've used in the past? Other AIs are like a chatbot, chat-focused, providing customer service or information. Agents are action-focused, making decisions and performing tasks. Think of a Copilot agent like your digital assistant. It's trained to do specific tasks for you. What can they do? You might think, that sounds great, but so what? Well, ever wish you had someone to schedule your meetings, analyze reports, manage your digital files and folders? Don't worry, there's an agent for that. You can use one created by Microsoft, or if you can't find exactly what you need, you can create your own. With this fast-paced world we live in, who doesn't want AI that can actually do the work? Copilot agents make it possible. And that's your Copilot tip of the week. See you next time.
Thank you so much, Willis, for our Copilot tip of the week. And a big thank you to Simon for joining us today, talking all about Copilot agents. I want to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe because on our next show, we're going to have Carolyn April. She's with GTIA. She's going to be joining us. I'm super excited to chat with her. You're not going to want to miss out. We will see you all soon. Thanks, everybody.